Hello, welcome to Strictly Money at the News Forum, where all voices matter. I'm Saijal Patel. Our seniors are some of the most vulnerable to financial abuse, and not just fraud and scams, but also within families, especially during the transfer of wealth. The level of abuse the elderly face has prompted regulatory changes to help protect them. And to discuss those changes and what it means is Laura Tamblyn Watts. She's CEO of CanAge, Canada's national seniors advocacy organization, and she joins me now. So this is a very important topic, and the number of fraud and scam cases, at least it seems, has escalated. Are you seeing that?
It is escalating, both in real numbers, but also the rapidity, how fast new frauds and scams get to market is also increasing. So we know that there is more money being taken from older people in particular, and it's being more efficient in getting that money out of them.
Wow. So let's talk about these regulatory changes, because one of the changes that came into effect is this development of the trusted contact person. So tell us about that.
It's a mechanism which many financial institutions were already using, and it just makes sense. So imagine your kid is going to school. You need to put an emergency contact if you can't be reached for whatever reason. It's that same basic principle. You and your financial advisor will sit down as part of the Know Your Client process, and they will ask you, is there somebody that we can reach out to in the case of an emergency, in the case we can't get a hold of you, or in the case that we think that there's something wrong? That could be financial abuse, or it could even be a health issue. And most people understand that need, and they're quite willing to do it.
Okay. And can you just clarify, Laura? Does this include bank representatives and financial advisors?
So this is required on
Okay.
the behalf of the investment community. Having said that, many banks are also implementing this as part of an optional process.
Okay. So, but it's up to the individual, the client, too, right? If they want to participate in that, so that's optional.
There are always some people who will say, you know what, my financial information is entirely private to me. I don't want you reaching out. If you can't get a hold of me when I'm hiking in Nepal, okay. And if you can't get a hold of me because you're concerned about some type of abuse or neglect, I'm willing to take that risk. I don't actually want anyone reach out to. Having said that, mostly when you go through the what if circumstances, people think, yes, I do actually have somebody that would be quite useful to have as that.
Yeah. And so it brings me to this point then, Laura, if they can't get a hold of the client or if they see something suspicious, can they actually freeze their account? And would that direction be under the trusted contact person? Because I can see how that is important, but it can also backfire.
Many people will have a power of attorney for a property type of situation. And it's a little bit different depending on which jurisdiction you're in. But that's somebody that you've chosen to stand in your shoes legally. And they have all of the powers that you would have typically to make decisions like freezing accounts, stopping trades, or withdrawing money. Having said that, one of the big risks we have is when people who are acting as a power of attorney are perhaps misusing that power. Maybe they don't understand it. Maybe they're actually really taking advantage. So it's good to have somebody else to reach out to. A trusted contact person is really only going to be reached out to in the case of emergency. It's not going to be a regular kind of situation. That's important to know. They don't have the ability to provide direction in terms of trades to the advisor. They can only give information.
Okay. So that brings me to that question because you believe that advisors, the trusted contact person, and the POA or power of attorney should be separate individuals, correct?
Many people won't have more than one person to turn to, but I like the idea of having two separate people if that's available in your life. Again, statistically, about two-thirds of people who are financially abusing another person are those closest. Again, it may be a misunderstanding, maybe an innocent misunderstanding of their role, or maybe not so innocently. So to have somebody outside of that power paradigm can be very useful.
Yeah, I'm very important too. I know Just recently, my parents' advisors reached out to me. I am now the trusted contact person, and it was a new process to go through, but I think a very important one. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back, Laura. Stay with us. Welcome back. Laura, I think some of our viewers will be surprised by this. I'm certainly not surprised given the work that I do, but two-thirds of elder abuse, including financial abuse, is perpetrated by family members and friends. Wow, right? Can you give us some examples?
I think of it as a spectrum. So there's the regular person who's trying to do the right thing. They've been given this power of attorney. They don't really know what they're supposed to do. And so they try to simplify. Well, just put all of mom's money into my account and I'll just pay the bills. Of course, you can't do that. In fact, not only is it inappropriate, it can be actually criminal. But that's just a regular person without training, just doing the wrong thing. Then in the middle, there's those hard decisions. Well, my roof needs fixing. And if my mom was mentally capable, I would ask her for money. Maybe I need $50,000 to fix the roof. She would give me that money. I know she'd give me that money. So I'm just going to take that money because I can't ask her because she's mentally incapable. So she may have been able to give you that money, but you can't give it to yourself. And then on the far end, there are people who are really waiting for their inheritance and they're getting impatient and they take the money before the person dies. And that is certainly on the increase.
All right, and that's what we were talking about with the wealth transfer. Important point, considering that there's 1.1 trillion dollars changing hands as we speak, right? I can imagine that this is difficult for many seniors too, because for them it's their family, and they may not have anyone else to lean on, and they might also not be very tech savvy. So they're depending on someone, which also opens them up to being taken advantage of.
When it comes to things like debit cards, tap, 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 $100 each time, and then it can get to online banking. And certainly the financial institutions, whether it be for banking or investments, are encouraging people to do work online. Well, why don't you just set it up for me? And then, I'm having a hard time understanding, oh, well, maybe you just pay the bills. Maybe you could just take over the investments. And that slippery slope happens as opposed to somebody learning how to do it. Credit cards as well, easy to use, really on the internet these days, even again using tap technology. So we know that access to money is very easy for other people. And again, sometimes it's with good intentions and sometimes not so much.
Yeah. So Laura, let's talk about some of the biggest scams that you are seeing, just because you said, it moves so quickly. What are you seeing right now that seniors should be aware of?
There are always scams associated to whatever's in the news. So I can tell you that COVID-19 scams are still alive and well today, and they burst in almost overnight. As we were still trying to understand what COVID was, there was already COVID frauds and scams. We certainly see a lot of the traditional ones, things like tax scams, CRA scams, spoofing scams, where people are sending things that look like their financial institution. And some of them are so good, it's really hard to tell the difference. Increasingly, we're seeing mobile technology. So older adults are now getting smartphones, but text seems like a closer relationship. So lots of package scams, collect your package, pay your duties, and so on. And then there's those interpersonal scams. Of course, many people will know what we call the grandparent
Yeah.
scam.
Yeah.
That's where you show up and you say, "Hi, grandma, hi, grandpa." And they say, "Oh, is that you, Joe?" And they say, "Yes, it's me, Joe." And that involves sending money over the wires. And that's very specific. When we see money being wired, you can really know that that's a red flag. And it typically is to another jurisdiction. And there's almost always another person they pass the phone to, a pretend doctor, a pretend police officer or lawyer that validates this claim. And this will continue on and on.
Wow. We only have about a minute left. So what's your advice? How do seniors protect themselves?
You need to be skeptical, but not paranoid. And so you can take the information in and then always go look up what the real information is. So I may get a link saying this particular delivery is there. You know what? Go online or go into your phone book and call that delivery company and find out separately. If you get something from the CRA, yes, there's some big red flags. You're not paying your taxes in Apple gift cards or something else like that. But you can call the CRA with their registered number. And be very wary of links because they are the beginning to getting your information stolen. You may not even know that, but it's being sold in this black market. And for every one scam that you fall for, your information is being sold 5 to 10 times.
Wow. So if you do get a link, you don't open it, or can you open it?
Do not open the link. Again, if you think it's from your utility company, look up the real number for the utility company and phone them. Don't click
Okay.
the link.
Laura, really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
Laura Tamblyn Watts of CanAge. Stay put because we'll be right back.